Hello, students. This is part two of lesson planning, and I've actually have a record work from a term three student, and this particular lesson is part of a unit that incorporates science and language arts. That's why she has these both of these standards, the subject areas here. Here you can see that she's got the California Content Standards for Science and English Language Arts here, and it's for fourth grade. And she's written that under what the goals will be. The students will, so you can read that on your own, but it goes back to what we saw as the big picture for the standards. She's also written what the concepts and skills will be in this particular lesson. And you can see it's very succinct. They will respond to literature by writing a short summary of a process, giving directions and or report findings on the investigation of a FOSS lesson. FOSS is a particular type of curriculum that her school uses. She has written her California content standards here, and in this particular case, she has written the ones for science, and then she's also written the ones for ELD. The English language arts is going to come out of her application of the ELD. So, what I want to show you here is that as she's checked off what the box is for her grade level. But now she's written the content standard. And the content standard is very specific to the science standard here. And it says that the students will know that expository summaries tell about factual people, events, and situations. This is also part of ELA. And that the students will use a graphic organizer to write down some main ideas and details of our text using the science notebook. So what she's done is she's combined two sets of standards. They're going to be using English language arts in order to do those things, and they're going to be using the vehicle of science in order to complete the English language arts piece. Now she's written for the language objective, which is where I really want you to pay attention, that the students will discuss and articulate knowledge, make connections, and express wanderings during the science talk. So I know that this student has looked at the objective, and she has decided that in this particular case that the students will be able to contribute during the science talk during the discussion portion, and they're doing this on magnets. I want to let you know that when you have this edit box here, you can write what you want it to be, or you can look here where it says the science objective checkbox. And I'm not exactly sure why on my screen it's not opening, but I would prefer that you not use that you write out what the language objective is going to be, and that you also write out what the objective for the content. Those are two separate objectives. One is this is what they're going to learn with the stuff, and the other is this is how they're going to demonstrate with me their knowledge through language of what they learned about the stuff. So just remember those two things as you're working through this. Then you have this section where it talks about learning about students. There is a complete portion of learning about students section in the live binder that I need for you to look at. It is very detailed. You must write a detailed description of class information in this particular box because you cannot teach whom you do not know. And I need to know that you know who you're teaching. So in this particular box, you're not just going to write, oh, I have 12 boys and 13 girls and 3 African Americans and 2 Asians and 15 Caucasians and I have 3 kids that know ELD and so on. You're going to write as much as possible about these children: socioeconomics, parent information, health information, where they are academically, any and everything you can find out about these children. Because unless you know who you're teaching, there is no way you're going to be able to structure your lessons in such a way as to make them accessible to them. So usually this is the one area where I have students um, have to rewrite. So go to the live binder and look at that section about learning about students, and you can see a very comprehensive description for an exemplar on what should be in this particular box. Then here it has considerations, and the considerations checkbox is the different. I can't open this on her on her LPA, but you were given. Let me go ahead and switch screen so I can show you what it looks like for you. Okay, I'm going to toggle between these two lesson plans so that you can see. I have one where I'm able to make edits, and then I have the one where the student has given it to me and I'm unable to make edits. So I want to go back to where they show you in the language objective, and then you can click here about what is it, reading, writing, listening, or speaking. Remember when I told you in the ELD standards, you have reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Here you check off the ones that you were using in the ELD standard. But remember, if you check it, I have got to see it. So that means if you say that there's going to be listening and speaking in this lesson, I've got to see in the language objective that the students will be speaking and listening, doing something. And if you'll remember with this lesson right here, she had the students, they're going to be discussing, which means there's an implication of speaking and listening, so that I know that listening and speaking are going to be a part of this lesson plan for the ELD students. So then we have the class information, and then we have the considerations for the students. Let me toggle back. And there are lots of considerations that you can have for students, and this is a drop-down box. I caution you here. If you look at your whole class and you say that there are EL learners, there's a child with a physical development issue, there's a child with emotional development issue, that there's an IEP, and that there's a health issue, when I see this lesson, I have to see adaptations for all of those. As a beginning teacher, I encourage you to limit your considerations at this point. As you become more experienced in your teaching career and in your process through Cal State, you will be able to check more and have more of those adaptations and considerations visible in your lesson plan. But right now, I encourage you to check ELD because you have to do ELD. And I encourage you to then pick whatever other one you want to use as a consideration as it relates to this lesson and what you know about the students in your class. Okay. Then what is it that you anticipate? Here, it asks you to write down things that you are going to be using as your adaptations for your students as you anticipate their difficulties. So here you write down the things you're going to anticipate. Down here is you write out what are the adaptations you're going to use to deal with those things that you anticipate. So if you have a student that has a hearing impairment, you anticipate that this student will need to have some type of additional wait time or communication device that is going to slow this child down in getting the information. So that's what you anticipate as a difficulty. So how are you going to adapt that? Are you going to give the student more wait time? Are you going to give the student preferred seating? Or you're going to allow the student to use a particular type of technology. So here is the difficulties you anticipate, and then the adaptations. It could also be for a student that is gifted and talented. A difficulty could be the child's going to get the information too quickly. So what do you anticipate? Are you going to have to provide other resources for this child? Change the grouping for this child? Give this child an additional assignment? So it asks you what those are, and you go ahead and you can write down those things that you anticipate are going to be changes. Here is an introduction to the Common Core curriculum. We really are not going too involved with it as yet, but as we go through the program, you will see that we're going to be requesting more and more. But one of the things that we are always going to be looking for is how you are integrating these 4 paradigms into your lesson planning. And the point of this is we don't want your students to be just sitting and getting. Your students should be involved in the learning in the classroom in an active fashion. That you should be stimulating your students to either work collaboratively communicate with one another. They should always be thinking at a rigorous and critical level and as creatively as possible. These are the 4 C's for 21st century skills. And these are the 4 C's that we would like to see at minimum of 1 C in every lesson. And as you continue through the program, you will see that the demands for incorporating more of these 4 C's will become greater. Then you have evidence of student learning, and that's the assessment. What it asks you here is, what kind of assessment are you going to be using for this? Are you going to be using a formative assessment, summative assessment, informal or formal, traditional like recall, response, true or false, multiple choice tests, or performance tests where they actually have to do something? I would like to speak to these 4 right here. Formative assessment is an ongoing way of understanding what is it that my students are learning. It is also usually done informally, but it can be done formally, and it's what you observe. Maybe the students give you something and you look at it, but you look at it to see, what are they learning? What have they learned? Formal assessment is very powerful because it is in formal assessment you can change a person's mind. Summative assessment is much more formal, and that's the test at the end of the week, or the essay that they hand in, or the book report that goes with the book. That is showing you what you taught, what the students learn from what you taught, and it usually means it's the end and you're not going to go back and reteach it. I have to caution you that as you work through your lessons, I am going to be looking for more formative and informal assessment as you go through the lesson. So it is not appropriate for you to say at the end of the week, they will take this exam. I need to know that you know today, as you were teaching them, that they are getting whatever it is you want them to get. Then you're going to have a description of the assessment, and you will write whatever that happens to be, whatever kind of assessment it will be. And since it's going to be one that you are going to be creating, you have to make sure that this assessment aligns with the information. And that's my husband in the background. So that's that guy that just walked past. You have to make sure that whatever information that you were asking the students to create here in the assessment is also going to be aligned with the standards. Finally, we have the procedure, which is actually getting into the lesson. And I'm going to create a third video for that, because I don't like for my videos to be too long. And this one's at 13 minutes now. So I hope that helps you in seeing how to fill out the lesson plan assistant, at least up until this point. And always, if you have questions, you can always get in contact with me. But I do hope that this is helpful. And thank you.